Loading snacks.
What it do? Snackers, snackettes, and snack X's. Your boy Gage is here with the homie Jokes.
Yo, yo.
Double yo for your pleasure. You are now tuned in to Loading Snacks Weekly, where we get together once a week and we talk about things that are happening in pop culture. And today
Today,
we're gonna talk about Game Pass again because I don't know, why wouldn't we? But apparently there's a price drop that's gonna be coming our way. We gotta talk about it. You know what I mean? CinemaCon is happening right now, which for those of you that don't know is essentially like the convention where all the theater chain owners and stuff like that get together and all the people get to say like this is what movies we have coming out and all that jazz. So we're gonna talk about Sony at CinemaCon. Hey, what's going on, Doctor Who? Long time no see. Good to see you in the chat there. And we're gonna talk about a new there's a new trailer for what I feel like is what Netflix is using to replace Stranger Things. What's up, Andrew? Which is called The Burrows. We're gonna take a look at that. And then we're gonna discuss my top 5 Mortal Kombat characters.
Ooh.
Which might be changing as the show goes on. We'll see. We'll see. But Jokes, you got a job to do.
Yup.
We'll get the link to our website up. Go check us out there. We're making some updates to the website this week. And it's one of the easier ways to get a hold of us at Patreon. We just recorded this month's episode of Snacking and Hanging. So for our Patreon members, that episode will go live this evening once we get done here. And we can go in and post it and all of that jazz. But speaking of Patreon, it's time for the 619 Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so let's shout out our top tier patrons, starting with Anthony Cunningham, Marcus Houston, Susan Dortch, Tyrone Carson, Meticulous Skin, Alex Lee, Ellis Mbe, and Kerbert Ferguson. Thank you very much. We truly, truly appreciate it.
Indeed, we do. We always will. Thank y'all so much. Jokes?
Yes, sir.
It is now time for hashtag WHHW, which of course is last week's news, which is over there somewhere. Hook me up.
Number one.
Jokes. Jokes. A lot's been happening in the world of gaming, period. But Xbox specifically seems to be dealing with a lot of ups and downs. And over the last couple of days, there was a leaked memo that came from Asha Sharma, who is the new president of Xbox over there, that went out to her team, essentially saying that Game Pass is too expensive. That it's too expensive for you know their customers, and that we have to find another way to bring the cost of that down. Now, they also said she's in that memo. It said that there would be a deeper dive with the Xbox team members sometime next week.
Okay,
I'm sure that'll leak. Like what I mean? Like I'm sure that'll leak. Maybe we'll have to talk about it again next week, but we're here to speculate. Jokes. Game Pass is probably my favorite thing about gaming right now. It's definitely the best deal in gaming for consumers. It's still super up in the air whether or not Game Pass is good, bad, ugly, indifferent, profitable, whatever for developers, etc. But they just hiked the price of Game Pass last year up to like $30, right? From it was 20.
Yeah.
So the highest tier is now $30 a month, which is super expensive. It's not unlike Netflix and Disney Plus and many other streaming services that are out there. Uh, however, it in I guess the difference between those things and this is how different the market is in terms of the expense for making the
Mm-hmm.
product and then getting the product to you. So, unlike movies where streaming has become sort of an issue for movies, for a long time they still had that baked in up at least through
Mm-hmm.
COVID. They had that baked in, like, this is how much time these movies have to be in the theater before they can go to video on demand or be on a streaming service or something like that to allow us to make as much money as we possibly can or whatever. Um, with games, you don't have that. Like, you don't have a separate market where the content goes first. That's the only
Mm-hmm.
place you can get it, play it, whatever, access it before it becomes available um, at a sellable level. And so it is a little bit different. Even if you look at music and music streaming, for a long
Mm-hmm.
time, you had radio. Like,
Yep.
songs were released, they'd go to radio and they'd be on radio essentially as a commercial to try to get you to go buy the album, but they would be available on the radio and really only on the radio. Maybe they'd do a video or something like that before the album came out, where there was a period of time where they kind of had that lead up going into, and that was the only place that you could get access to that music before it was available for you to purchase, kind of thing, right? Um, Again, games don't really have that. And as the budgets have skyrocketed and the costs have gone up for what it looks like to make a AAA game,
Mm-hmm.
or at least what they felt like they had to do in order to put out a game that they could, make some money on, like the ability to be profitable in that space has gone way up, become more, the cost has gone way up, the ability to be profitable has gone way down. It's much more
Mm-hmm.
difficult, and Game Pass kind of snuck in and made it so that, like, gaming could be affordable for people.
Mm-hmm.
And right now we're in a place where gaming is looking more and more like, at least as we knew it, right? Console gaming. Nintendo, Sony, let's say Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even going to count PC. And I'll tell you why I'm not going to count PC in a minute. But it's gotten to the point now where even just buying the console itself is such an expense. And then the games have gotten to the place where they're $70 or $80 that it is
Yep.
pricing people out of it. And so obviously when fewer people can afford to do it, you need to charge more for it so you can make as much, if not more, money on it later.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't find a way to make it so that people can get to it, they're not going to be able to. Is Game Pass too expensive?
I would say for the average person, probably so.
Okay.
Like, I think $30 for what you get. Like, let's say maybe you are the type. Let's say maybe you budget your money and you allow yourself, maybe buy a game a month. Like some people with time constraints and all that type of thing may not necessarily get through it all. $30 a month to be able to virtually access this whole entire library is excellent.
Sure.
But then when you also put in the landscape, like obviously Game Pass kind of sits itself in the gaming realm, but when you put it next to, like, say, Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, whatever, all these other subscription services you may have, it starts teetering a little bit, and then you start thinking about, like, what's more important that I want to actually have in there for it.
Mm.
Without fully, like, we know that the developers, everyone gets a certain cut out of the way Game Pass works. We don't know the 100% definitive one there. Like, I know the question has been thrown around: how viable is Game Pass? And I feel like we've heard it from both sides that
Yeah.
Game Pass just hasn't been able. It can't sustain this for a long period of time. Then you have people on the other side that say, my game has gotten so much lift from being in Game Pass that it makes more sense for it to live there, and I
Yeah.
still make the money on it. So
Yeah.
I think $30 will, like, $360 a year. Like, when you say it that way, a lot of people, like, some people like to look at it that way, how much I'm end up paying the whole entire year. And I think that's one
Sure.
thing that they haven't done that I think a lot of people may be a little bit more accepting of. If you were to just say, hey, it's $300 a year to just have Game Pass for the whole entire year, I feel like more people would rather, pay into it, get it out of the way, and not worry about it. But if you're still having to buy the console and you don't have the means into it as of yet, that's a whole nother layer on it for it.
I mean, look.
So,
So here's the thing, right? Everything you're saying makes sense. Like the truth of the matter is, Game Pass is a great value.
mhm,
But when you compare Game Pass to, let's say, another streaming service, right? So Netflix at like $30 to stream in
mhm,
4K, to be able to stream at the same time on like multiple TVs or multiple devices, right? Also does allow you to have your family, like you get multiple
mhm,
profiles, your family can access it, and you can have 3, 4, or 5 people that are viewing from the same account all at the same time, right?
mhm,
And Game Pass doesn't give you that. And I think that's the biggest difference between what and where Game Pass is. And we talked about this a couple of years ago. We knew that there were rumors that they were flirting with the idea. As a matter of fact, they did a beta test of a family plan for
mhm,
Game Pass in like Brazil and some other countries or whatever, and they never brought it over to the US. I think that's where they need to be.
mhm,
$30 a month to me for Game Pass should be a family plan. I used to
mhm.
pay $20 a month for Xbox Live for 4
Right.
people, right? Game Pass at $30 a month should be a family plan. And if you're an individual, because here's the thing, we're used to paying a certain amount of money and looking at the total value we're getting,
Mhm.
knowing that there's all this stuff here, but you clearly can't access. Like, there's no way you're gonna play
Right.
all these games. You can't play all these games every month, right? Just like you can't watch all the movies and shows on Netflix, and you
No.
can't,
Mhm.
like, even if you have cable TV or satellite, you
You
clearly
ain't
can't
watching all
watch
them
everything
stations.
that's on it at once, right? Like you have access to it. You can watch what you choose, but you can't watch it all. Like, it's just not possible. So you are always paying for content you can't get, right?
Mhm.
And Game Pass isn't different from that. I don't think that's what the issue is. But I have to start thinking to myself, like, what are the ways that Game Pass has to change in order to bring the pricing down? Rumors are that Call of Duty is coming out of Game Pass, and
I
that was
did
a
see.
lot of what they used as a reason for why the price went up, on top of like the Ubisoft thing and
Mhm.
whatever. One, should they pull Call of Duty out of Game Pass to bring the price down?
I wouldn't be opposed to it. Obviously
I
it's
mean, I
a
don't care either way because I don't play Call of
yeah,
Duty.
right. So like if that's going to be the one time, technically it's a first party studio type of thing now, so it technically should live in Game Pass because that's what it
100%.
is. And I feel
100%.
like if you take that out, that now starts maybe we can test the waters by taking out Halo and let's see how things work. So I feel like you play that field a little bit, but maybe you need something we've been said. Maybe you need to separate Call of Duty, and a part of it can live in Game Pass, and then a part of it lives where it's just the single player campaign. Maybe people will pay in to just buy the single player campaign, and then maybe the
Look,
multiplayer is what is in Game Pass.
I mean, look, I think there's a lot of ways that you could flip that switch, right? I think you have to be
Mm.
very careful when
Yeah.
you have already told people Game Pass is all of the first party studios are day one,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you're like that's part of the deal. Um, I think there are some ways that you can caveat that semi safely. But I also think that, like, if you're like, look, Call of Duty is a different beast or whatever, you decide to take Call of Duty out. But if you're a Game Pass member, you get free skins, you get free battle pass, something, something every month. You get like kind of like what they do with Fortnite. Like Fortnite is already free to play, but if you have Game Pass, then you get, you know, like the Fortnite, I forget, like their battle pass or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
like you get that, which is like a $10 or $12 value or whatever, right? So they say, well, the game itself isn't there. You have to buy the game if you want to play the game. But if you buy the game and you're playing the game, you're gonna get a benefit. Almost like GTA Plus with GTA.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or something like that, right? They could do that kind of stuff. And people might complain to some extent, but the reality of it is it's only been like that for a year. So it's really only
Yeah.
been like that for 1 or 2 Call of Duties. And truthfully,
Mm-hmm.
everybody who plays Call of Duty buys Call of Duty every year anyway.
Anyway.
Right. So, like, if you subscribe to Game Pass for $30 a month for the year, really just to play Call of Duty, like you didn't really do that anyway. You did, you know what I mean? Like you are either playing something else or you decided it didn't make sense for you to do that when you could just spend $100 or whatever and buy the version of Call of Duty you wanted and play that. So I don't really think that hurts them but so much. But I do think that there will be people who will push back and say, well, you said all first party games are day and date, you know what I mean, in Game Pass. So I think that poses a problem.
And that's it.
But I don't know how else you bring that price down. Now, what I will say is, I think that there are some options that they could do. And I hate the idea of Game Pass and the tiers or whatever getting more convoluted because it
Yeah.
certainly could. But I do think that there is a space where they can say, here's the thing. If you have Game Pass Premium or whatever, you have access to all the day one games, right? And they kind of do that thing where, like, I think at the lower levels now, like, you only get certain games within a certain period of time or something like that. I think if they said, here's the deal, you get access to 6 games a year, right? 6 first party games a year. If you're at Game Pass tier, whatever this is, you have access to like 6 games a year that are day and date, day one, you know, whatever. You can play those and have access to them, but you're not going to get everything day one. You can choose what titles. And once you've chosen to download that title and use that title, you know, first day, then
you're locked in.
Eat up, it's going to eat up your choices or whatever, right? Or something like that. I think that there are some options that they could mess around with something like that. Are people going to be happy? No. But again, everybody's not going to play everything, and you can't play everything anyway. So considering that, right, in a year like this year where you have a Fable, a Gears, maybe a Halo, like that, I don't know how they're really looking at them redoing the first Halo game or whatever.
Yeah.
But like when you have all that coming out, like there are people who, no matter how much of a big deal Fable feels like it is for Xbox fans, there are people who are not going to touch Fable because they don't play RPGs and they just don't care. Like it's not their thing, right? But if you were like, you got to choose between Forza, Horizon 6, Fable, you know what I mean? Like you get 3 or 4 games a year, and they were like, I'll take Gears and I'll take Forza. I don't really need Fable. You know what I mean? And if you decide later on you want to pay for it, or they could also do a much more reduced price. So one of the other things about Game Pass that I felt like was always really cool was that if you wanted to buy the games, you could go and you could buy the games at a discount. That way, if the game ever left Game Pass, which again doesn't really necessarily affect the first party games, but like to me, if you were to say you have access to this number of games, but then if you want to buy one of the other games, you can buy it, but you
get a little bit of a discount.
Nah, not a little bit. It needs to be a lot of a discount. Like I'm not even like I think it needs to be like somewhere in the 40 to 50% range. Like that's just that's how I feel. Like I think anything lower than that, it just feels like you're taking too much away from people who've already been in to build it. And again, you might not be getting that kind of a discount on the other stuff that isn't first party or whatever. Nah, I think 10 or 20% is cool on those things. But like for first party, if you're a Game Pass subscriber and you have used your full on, these are my day one, I get these for free the whole time or whatever, these additional games that you might want to check out, or maybe games that are a little bit older or, you know, whatever, those games you're getting at 50%. Again, they have to figure out how to do it where people aren't just going to jump in for $30 and then be like, well, I'm just going to buy these 2 games or whatever for 50, you know what I mean?
Just
whatever. So maybe you have to have been a member for a certain period of time, or you have to keep your membership for a certain period of time or something before your discount kicks in or whatever. That's not a new thing. There are a lot of, you know, there are a lot of memberships that do that kind of a thing where they're like, well, after you're here for a certain period of time, then you can start to get, you know, something else. Andrew said, can they bring back the movies and TV app? That was so great to use for shows. Here's the thing. I love the movies and TV app. I downloaded it and have a lot of stuff that I use in and outside of that app, and I loved it. But the reality of it is, with everything that's happening in the streaming wars and everything that's happening in terms of the consolidation that's going on with all of the all of the houses that own those, like, I just don't see it. And clearly they weren't making any money there.
Yeah.
Like people weren't. They were either waiting and just doing stuff on
waiting
streaming,
to them discounts
or something like that.
Hey, listen, I would always go in, like, especially with anime, they would have them
Oh yeah.
monstrous sales where you
Oh
were
yeah.
getting like whole seasons for like $2 and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Like I wouldn't buy anything until that thing came up and was like anime month. And you just go in there, wreak havoc,
Yeah.
and then you never go back to that show again until so but
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't I really like the Microsoft movies and TV. It
Mm-hmm.
just made it easy to access everything and get to the stuff that I wanted. But the reality of it is that I just don't think that there's any real money in it anymore for somebody like that. Like when Apple is doing what they're doing with Apple TV and Netflix and just everybody else. I mean, even Roku and just there's so many places where you can go and you can buy that kind of stuff that I just don't think that
Mm-hmm.
it's a smart move for them. Now, having said that, the battles that Microsoft has had with the likes of Google and Apple in terms of creating space in their storefront so that
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft can have their own storefronts and sell things in their stores without them taking a cut or that kind of thing does open them up to the idea of being able to have their own storefronts for other things like that, which you can now actually, like, they made it a long time ago so you could no longer like purchase games in the app and have them go directly to your console or something like that. You can do that kind of stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
um I think that those things might be creating a space where something like that could happen. It'll probably just be a different name. But we'll have to see. Um, it'll be real interesting to see. Obviously, I'll be paying attention to see if they, some news leaks next week about what she does say. And look, with them they've already announced their June showcase. What used to be E3, so we know that that's coming. I imagine they're going to want to have something to be able to tell people at that point in time. So,
Mm-hmm.
we'll see how that pans out. Jokes, hook me up.
Number two.
So, CinemaCon is happening right now. And again, as I said at the top of the show, CinemaCon is, think of it kind of like San Diego Comic-Con, but specifically for movie theaters. This is a convention for theater owners, your AMCs and so forth, to go and see what movies are coming out throughout the rest of the year and kind of make those deals and so forth. And so Sony had their big day yesterday. They revealed a lot of stuff. So they teased images from the third Spider-Verse movie. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'll care when I'm sitting in a chair watching it. Leave me alone. They showed a new teaser for Spider-Man Brand New Day.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. We'll get it in like a week or something like that. Cool. You know what I mean? They announced an R-rated Bloodborne movie that is being produced by Jacksepticeye. Now, Jokes, are you familiar with Jacksepticeye?
Name wise, no. Maybe some of the work.
Jacksepticeye is one of the biggest video game streamers on the planet. He's been doing it forever. It's like him and like Markiplier and maybe a couple other people. He's kind of in like the Mr. Beast realm of streamers, but more specifically for game streaming.
Games. Got it.
So it'll be interesting because I don't really know why he would be producing a movie.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean he can't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but it seemed to be a big deal for a lot of people. That's cool. They also announced a Helldivers movie.
Okay.
Starring Jason Momoa. I can't. My immediate thought was, I'm out. Like, I just don't care.
That seems like it turns it more comedy.
I also don't like Helldivers. You said it's turned into a comedy?
When I hear it, like, I feel like it's going to end up being more of a comedy almost.
Jokes, Helldivers is a comedy.
Yeah. Oh.
No. Helldivers is a comedy. It is a comedy, straight up stolen parody of the parody that is
Starship Troopers.
Starship Troopers. Like, it is 100%
Mhm.
stolen. That's my biggest concern about them even being like, we're gonna do a Helldivers movie. Like, I feel like the folks at Starship Troopers are gonna be like, no,
Or that
no,
John will
dog,
end up
no,
turning into to the same universe or something. I
because
don't know. I don't
that's
know.
really what it is. But
Mhm.
whatever. Having said all that, a lot of that was very exciting for a lot of people. But
Mhm.
here's the thing that was important to me. So Tim Rothman, who is the
Mhm.
chairman of Sony Pictures,
Mhm.
had a long. I don't know. Let me not say it was a long speech, but um, he got up in front of the crowd and basically said to the theater owners, "You got to change your practices." He specifically called out that they need to lower prices, that movies are too long, that they need to put their foot down as far as holding movies in the theater longer before they go to streaming, before they go to video on demand, so that the cinema business
Mhm.
can continue to thrive, and that they need to cut back on ads. That, like, people are just well aware that they don't need to go to the theater on time. They could be like 20 minutes late because the first 20 minutes is all ads.
Mhm.
And he was like, so now, because people know that and they're hip to it, and you actually have to announce that in your times when you say what time the movie starts, that people are avoiding it. And so now, one of the biggest ways for people to see that there are trailers for a new movie that's coming out, they're not even seeing that because they're trying to avoid the ads. So they were like, he was like, you need to cut the ads. So you need to figure out a way to get your prices down, and you need to find a way to get rid of ads, and you need to put your foot down as far as the minimum amount of time that a movie needs to be in theaters. He said, even if it means that the movie itself gets shown on fewer screens, or you don't get access to as many movies,
Mm.
which I think is a
Mm.
very tricky thing to say when you're Sony and you have, I feel like, a lot of control over that, and so does Disney.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And for Disney to be like, you're gonna run this movie for 40 days,
Mhm.
and then it's coming out. You get 30 days, and it's coming out, and it's going to streaming, and there's nothing you can do about it. And if you're a theater chain, and you're like, nah, we're not doing that.
We're gonna
We
hold
want it
this
for
movie
90
hostage
days
for
or 45 days, and then Disney just be like, all right, well then you just don't
what you don't get
you
it.
don't get Moana live action or whatever this year, and so you'll just miss out on all that money. You know, like, it's an interesting space to be in, but it stood out to me because it says that if you just look at the way all of Hollywood is suffering, like
Mhm.
just the cuts and studios shutting down and the consolidation and people buying everything up and all of that noise, a lot of that does rest on theaters and theater chains being able to
Mhm.
sustain themselves. Um, and there's a portion of me that feels like there needs to be some pushback on theaters for like what they get charged for candy, and then what they charge for like
Charge. Yeah.
candy. Because again, I know that that's where they make their money. Like, they make their money in concessions, and there really isn't any money in ticket sales. But pricing people out of tickets and food is not gonna help. You know what I mean? And it does force people to be like, I'll just wait till it
Yeah.
comes to
So
stream. You know what I mean, or whatever. Um, I think they do need to make some changes. What do you feel like needs to happen? Jokes. Like, what do you think they need to do? Do you think he's right?
I feel like maybe to a degree, like small little changes. Obviously, concessions and things have gone through the roof over the last few years. Now a lot of theater chains are finding success with like popcorn buckets and all those extra little things that are really helping them to kind of compensate, I guess is the way to say it. But to have like Sony just come up and just straight say y'all need to lower price, y'all need to do this, but for them having to shell out whatever money to get a movie in the theater to keep it in there for a certain time and all this, it's like it's like, hey, we want you to short yourself so we can make sure that we still make the money that we're gonna make.
Yeah,
And I
well,
think,
here's what's weird about that is that like having the chairman of Sony Pictures say that when they don't have a streaming service of their own for
mm-hmm,
their movies to go to as soon as they're done. Like Disney's not going to play that game because again, Disney has Disney Plus,
they'll
so they
just
just
drop it
be
right
like,
there in a heartbeat.
you know what I mean? So it's when you look at it, like Paramount has their own streaming service. Again, like
Mm-hmm,
you look at the big WB, like they have their own. Warner Bros has their own streaming service. So like you have all of these houses that make these movies
mm-hmm,
that put them in theaters, but they also have money to be made in their own services
mm-hmm,
once it comes out of there. So the issue is less. I understand what the issue is for Sony because again,
mm-hmm.
Sony doesn't have that. Like Sony doesn't have now they own a streaming service in
Yeah,
Crunchyroll and so forth, but like there's
you
not
ain't
like a
putting.
Sony Plus
Yeah.
streaming service thing or whatever that you know what I mean. So they don't have that. So because they don't have that, they I would say are suffering more
Yeah.
than clearly your Disney, your Warner Brothers, your Paramount, who all again have their own streaming services to be like, yeah, drop that joint in the theater, AMC, you get 30 days, and then that joint is coming home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that gives them a place to make more money. So my thing to somebody like Sony would be like, what kind of deal are you offering? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what contingency plan are you giving to the theaters for them to keep these folks that have these streaming
Mm-hmm.
services of their own from forcing the theaters to do, you know what I mean, what they're doing? Because I don't see how, I don't see how that works. Like, it just doesn't
Yeah.
really make a lot of sense to me.
And also think about like the theaters technically now, like most of them have their own subscription service because like you can have, you know, their own movie like where you pay $25 a month and you essentially can go see as many movies you want in the theater. Now, granted, the average person's probably not going, but maybe once, maybe twice a month, if that on there. But then you do have people that somehow, in
Go
some
all the
shape or
time.
form, go to the movies every single day and
Sure.
see them. But then when you tell the theater also, yeah, scale back on your ads. Like, listen, people are paying that theater chain to be able to put the ad in front of people. That's another little thing that they can add into their pocket, where that can also help things out too. But you're telling them scale. So now, if we scale back ads, we're now, I guess, going to throw it back on the consumer side, and we're gonna raise that popcorn price. We're gonna raise that pizza price or something like that a little bit more. It's it's literally like it's a give and take. Like, and
100%.
I would think some of the movie houses would try to figure out how ways they could also support. Obviously, getting movies in. Like, we don't see a lot of the things that we would see in the past where, like, obviously they do screening of movies still. So obviously, if you're able to be able to get in and go, go see a screening of a movie and things like that. But what's the? I'm trying to think of what it is I'm actually trying to say. There used to be those extra, like, they do the fan events, but the fan events, in the past, you come in, you get like, you get poster, you get special popcorn, like you get used to get all of those type of things. Now with most fan events, it's just you just are having the benefit of seeing the movie earlier than what everybody else does. You may get a poster,
Yeah, that's a social
but
media push. Like
but
it's one
that
of those things where people get to go see it early and then they're posting about it and talking about
mm,
the movie or whatever ahead of time because they got to go see it early. Like that's really what a lot of those fan events have turned into. They're not as much a thing for the fan as they are a thing for some version of influencer.
mm,
You know what I mean? On some level to be like, I went and saw such and such early and I had a great time. Even if they don't talk about the movie, I had a great time. You
mm,
know what I mean? Or whatever. Like that's that's part of it. It'll be interesting to see. Like again, we've had a lot of discussions about theaters and what should happen with theaters and where it needs to go. Again, it's just very interesting to have somebody who's in a position of power, who
mm,
more or less really is a major studio, saying to theaters like, y'all need to really put
lower
your
your
foot
stuff.
down and make people keep their movies in here longer. But again, I feel like they're saying that because they don't have a
They don't got a
streaming
place to
service
put
of
it.
their own.
That they got to
Yeah,
pay
like
somebody to
they
put.
have to pay somebody else to do it. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like if Sony really, if they do Spider-Man, whatever. That movie's going to Disney Plus,
Yeah, because
Netflix,
you got the MCU, that
whatever.
Marvel side
And
of things.
yeah, there's different deals they got to do as far as that's concerned. So it's a very, very different thing.
What up,
Okay,
Kidlet?
miss you too. Yeah, it's a tricky place to be.
Mm-hmm.
I go to the theaters for the big stuff. I go once, maybe twice to see a movie, and then like I'm out. Because truthfully, by the time I get back around to trying to go see it again, it's available for me to just,
The way
you know
the
what I
things
mean,
work now.
download and watch. And I do actually purchase a lot of video on demand. Like I don't generally wait for just like straight streaming. Usually I purchase them, but
Mm-hmm.
I did that a lot through Microsoft Movies and TV. They're not there anymore, so
You
yeah.
would have to use a third party. Yeah.
We'll see. It'll be interesting to see if anybody responds to that throughout the rest of CinemaCon this week, in some way, shape, or form. Jokes, hook me up.
Number 3.
So yesterday, Netflix put out a trailer for a new. We're gonna call this their new thing. This feels to me is made by the people who made Stranger Things or something like that. Like it feels like the kind of thing that it's gonna be their next big push. I feel like. It's called The Burrows. Let's take a look at the trailer.
Cool.
I think it looks really interesting.
Cool.
Hi, my dad's moving in today.
Welcome to the Burrows, where you'll have the time of your life.
That's just creepy.
Ironic slogan for a place people come to die.
If you just open your heart to this place,
Yeah, baby!
you'll find the Burrows is not a last chapter. It's a new beginning.
What the hell are you gonna do with that?
I'm gonna shoot something.
Wait, shoot!
There are wonders in the burrows. Tucked away. Hidden. Buried. It's impossible.
Nothing's impossible anymore. You see it, right?
Yes, I see it.
We're all a part of this now.
Till the end, Sam.
Which, given our ages, could be any day.
Netflix.
Hey, jokes, man. That joint feels like the Goonies for old folks, bro.
That's all. I'm interested. I'm not like fully like.
You might not be old enough. This isn't for you, jokes.
But you know what? It's on Netflix, so I'm gonna watch it.
I mean, I'm gonna consider it. It'll likely be quote unquote required reading, if you will, right? Like it's gonna be necessary. But have you? See, here's the thing, bro. I don't know if you're old enough for this to feel like a thing for you. Like, have you seen Goonies?
I've only seen it maybe 3 times.
Yeah. See, it's like
it's not. Yeah, like, it's
and like even Stranger Things for you, like the nostalgia for the '80s, it doesn't quite do it. Yeah. If you've never seen Cocoon or Cocoon,
I've seen Cocoon.
That joint, like,
dog, Cocoon is one of my mother's favorite movies.
Hey, bro, this joint look like Cocoon. They look like aliens, bro. Like it just is like it looked like Cocoon. Like
now, when you say it, that actually that like that turned up a little bit more because like I like Cocoon. So,
I think that joint. I think that joint's gonna be a problem, bro. Like I think it's gonna be really, really good. Like, let me say, I'm hoping. Like, I am intrigued enough that
Right.
I'm like, I want to see more. And
Mhm.
like, it's next month, bro. It's May 21st.
Yeah.
So
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, all right, let's get here. Let's make it happen. Yeah, I'm thoroughly interested. I think it's gonna be really good. I'm a fan of basically everybody in the cast.
I was gonna say the cast is solid. Like the cast is solid with who they have in there. So that also could be a nice little help on it as well too.
Yeah, bro. I'm super interested. I think that wraps it up for what had happened was last week's news mixed
Mhm.
with a speckle of this week's business. You know what I mean? A little something something. Now we're gonna move into the top 5 of the week. And we have Mortal Kombat coming out next month, Mortal Kombat 2. And I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if I like the new first Mortal Kombat enough. The third Mortal Kombat movie, but it's the first Mortal Kombat.
Mm.
It's the part 1 to this part 2. I don't know if I liked it enough to even
Mhm.
feel like they were gonna give it a sequel.
The second one.
So I don't know where this is coming from. What I'll say is that first Mortal Kombat movie, reboot, I guess we'll call it,
Mhm.
did feel like it had a lot of potential, but
Mhm.
that it was in that COVID,
Yeah.
post-COVID era that I think it suffered some because of that. And so maybe that's why there was enough behind it to greenlight doing a sequel, putting Carl Urban, you know what I mean, front and center as Johnny Cage. We'll see how it pans out. But
Yeah.
because they're doing one, and like, it's Mortal Kombat. So like, I gotta get involved. You're gonna see some Mortal Kombat content coming out of here for probably the next few weeks. As we kind of get into the hype leading into this movie. So I just wanted to take today to kind of go over who my top Mortal Kombat characters are. And I asked Jokes about it, but Jokes said it was too hard to make a decision. And I kind of understand that. Because this was kind of a difficult thing for me, because the criteria for deciding who my top characters are, for a lot of people, I think would automatically be based in like who you use the most often or what characters you like to play as the most often, but that's not necessarily what this is. Like, there's such an iconic history and story around a lot of these characters that some of the characters that I like because of what their stories are. And I feel like if you're a Mortal Kombat fan, this may or may not surprise you where some of the characters are, but let's just jump into it. My number 5 is probably a lot of people's number 1. It's Scorpion. Now, look, having been a fan of Scorpion from the very beginning, he's the only character besides Sub-Zero, I think, that's in every game.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, I think that's right. Anyway, he's been there from the very beginning. And truthfully, he's easily the most iconic character from Mortal Kombat. Like, even if you don't play Mortal Kombat, if you don't care about fighting games, you've all heard it. Get over here. Like, everybody knows that. If you ever went to arcades when the first one or the second one came out, you would hear that. That was the thing that drew you over to the game. Mortal Kombat 2 came out. It was get over here and it was toasty. Like, those were the things that like drew you, to it. Besides the fact that they looked like real people,
Right.
You know what I mean, as opposed to like 2D sprites or whatever, and the violence. Like, clearly the violence was a big draw. But Scorpion, also, like, ninjas were and always have been cool, as is martial arts. So Scorpion, number 5. Number 4,
Not mad.
Sub-Zero.
Sub-Zero.
Now, let me just say this. Sub-Zero has a very complicated and convoluted history.
Mm-hmm.
The Sub-Zero that exists now isn't the original
Is the
Sub-Zero. Died and then became Noob Saibot. Like, there's a whole lot going on with Sub-Zero. But as a character in using someone, I think Sub-Zero gets the best new moves with every iteration in terms of like what they add to Sub-Zero as a character. Always like the standard like freeze ball kind of thing, but then there's always like he has the statue, or he has to slide, or he has like they just do a really good job of like, I feel like, amping the character up. Where Scorpion, it feels like, stays more or less the same across every game. A little more Ken and Ryu for Scorpion than Sub-Zero is across the board. I feel like Sub-Zero actually evolves more with every iteration in some manner. And so that's part of why Sub-Zero is ahead of Scorpion for me personally. Now, for a long time, my favorite character was this character, my number 3, which is Liu Kang. And the strange thing about Liu Kang is that from a story perspective, Liu Kang went from being my favorite in like the first 2 games to story-wise ending up like on the bad side and dying and turning into a zombie again. Mortal Kombat has a very rich yet convoluted history. And then like he just kind of fell off a little bit, but like the last couple of games, he got that like resurgence and ended up being like a whole god. So if things change, Liu Kang ends up being my number 3.
Dig it.
Now, my number 2. This was kind of difficult for me because for a moment, this was my number 1. And truthfully, on any given day, maybe it would change. But Jax. So here's the thing. Introduced in Mortal Kombat 2. The game. In the movies, like these new movies, he's in the first one. You kind of get some of the backstory or whatever. But like Jax in the last couple of games, he's not in the newest one. He's not in Mortal Kombat 1. It's so confusing trying to tell you what's going on.
Not playable.
No, right. Well, that's what, like, he's not playable.
Yeah.
So, like, it doesn't count. He's not in it. Where, but in the last 2, straight beast. And his dog, like Jackie, a monster in Mortal Kombat X and 11. Like, kind of ended up being my favorite character. And she almost made this list. Like, she would be my honorable mention. She almost made this list. But Jax is just, in terms of speed, strength, and just overall, like, I love the way Jax plays as a character. I love the combo system. I love the change-ups that they give him. And I like what they did with Jax as a character when they finally brought him back around after, like, the last ones. Hold on now. Wiz. TJ Combo doesn't have metal arms, sir. So, like, while Combo got the combos, Jax will rip Slim's arms off. Like, I just don't. I think Jax. I gotta give Jax a little extra. My number 1, and I feel like this is controversial. Smoke.
Okay.
Listen. I don't care what version of the game you play Smoke in. Slim is a straight up monster. Just a straight up monster. And again, I actually had Jackie in the number 1 spot for a moment, and I was like, nah. But Smoke, not unlike, like, Reptile can be incredible, but Smoke and Noob Saibot and Ermac, like, it's tough, bro. Like,
Saibot.
Smoke is a monster, though, and especially in this last game. Like, Smoke was hands down my favorite character in the most recent game in Mortal Kombat 1.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that his moveset, teleports, like just everything is it's so well done, it's so well put together. That as of right now today, Smoke is my number one. Now, in the future, like in the next couple of weeks, what you're gonna see is I'll be putting together a list of my favorite cameos from Mortal Kombat, because, and then I'll do like my favorite secret characters and stuff that came up, because starting with like Mortal Kombat 9, when they started adding like Freddy, they've had Jason, they've had Terminator, RoboCop, like they got all kinds of like
bunch of,
like special characters, Spawn, like they have all kinds of characters or whatever that have made cameos in the last like 4 or 5 games. And I think it'll be totally worth kind of going through that list and looking at what my favorites are. I think that'll be dope. Andrew said if they don't do a Butcher DLC for the next MK game and have some interesting dialogue with Johnny Cage, and I'll riot. You know what? That'll be absolutely fair. But I'm gonna be real with you. I don't know when we're getting another Mortal Kombat game.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a while.
Well, here's the problem. So NetherRealm, right, who is the developer for Mortal Kombat, is owned by Warner Brothers, and with the whole Warner Brothers and DC and being bought out thing, like there's a lot of limbo with what's going on with that studio and what's going to end up happening with it, as well as who will own the IP. I would love to see Ed Boon be able to take NetherRealm and move to somewhere else or become an independent and do something separate. But right now, it's very difficult to see what's going to happen with that. And the DLC for Mortal Kombat 1 ended so abruptly that a lot of the rumors were that it was because they were being pushed into working on a new Injustice game, which I would have been
I'm not upset.
100% behind if they were doing an Injustice 3. But again, with all of the turmoil that's happening with WB and DC and those characters and all of what's going on with that, it's just so very difficult to know what's going to happen with that. It would probably be safer for them to make another Mortal Kombat. But I'm also not completely positive that this last Mortal Kombat turned the numbers for them the way they really needed it to. And I think that the DLC and the pricing was egregious for getting skins and different, like all of that kind of stuff. So while I enjoyed the game and I liked the gameplay and I thought the story was really good and I thought the story DLC was really good in terms of where it was going, and them actually using this one to reboot the franchise and kind of reintroduce characters and kind of give them new stories, new storylines, and rewrite some of that kind of stuff, I think there was a lot of potential in that. But it's very difficult to know what that's going to mean or where it's going to go from here on out. And again, like what they've been able to do with those characters is like being a part of Warner Brothers and DC. They had access, like, you had Joker as a cameo character. Like they just, they've had a lot of access that I just don't know that they're going to have the same kind of access to, depending on what happens with this. So, NetherRealm being one of my favorite studios in terms of just like they do a game, they stick to that genre. They make a fighting game. That fighting game was Mortal Kombat. That's what we make. That's what we do. And outside of that, the other fighting game we make is Injustice, and it's basically Mortal Kombat without blood. Like staying in their wheelhouse and doing what they do, I think is one of the few things that a lot of studios just don't do anymore. A lot of studios try to do a little bit too much or something like that. It's a little tricky. Wiz said I haven't played MK in a minute. Last guy I played was Takeda. Let me tell you something.
Takeda
was a monster.
Solid. Dog.
Takeda was a monster. A little scorpion, also like some scorpion, but definitely a monster. Like I like Takeda a lot too. There's always characters like, look, man, and there was a time when like Bo Cho was my guy, which is a terrible thing to say, but that's that was the truth.
Dog, look at like when I found my one dude who got one Mortal Kombat game, and that was Kung Jin, and I got monstrous with him.
You did get busy. And there was some more, like Kung Lao was my guy for a minute too. Like there, sometimes, man, even if I don't really love the character, but I love their finishers, I will use that character.
I will use the character.
use that character, bro. Yeah. So you'll see over the next couple of weeks. I'll have some other Mortal Kombat lists that are coming your way. Look, I'm
Dig it.
totally glad to hear what y'all have. Feel free to share your lists, that kind of stuff. I'd love to highlight some of those things over the next few weeks as we get ready for the movie, because we're going to see the movie, and we're definitely going to do a spoiler boys and talk about the movie and all of that jazz. It'll be a movie that we will be going to the theater to see. So love to talk about that. Now, honorable mentions again for this list. It's very difficult to not. I love Jackie Briggs, love Ermac, I love Noob Saibot. Like I'm generally the ninjas. Reptile is kind of in and out for me. Not a huge fan of like Baraka, but there was a moment where I did really like Cassie Cage.
Okay.
Sonya actually had a moment for me too in 11.
Okay.
But she wasn't no Jackie. She wasn't no Jax. They were like, yeah. I think I'm about to go play one of them joints. Yeah. Just so visceral. Like there's just something that feels really good about playing Mortal Kombat, and the sound of the strikes, the hits, the like it just there's something so great about it. So look, as far as the Put a Pin in It podcast is concerned, like the Patreon exclusive, one of the things we're gonna put a pin in is I'm not sure if you guys saw, but so Nickelodeon Studios, the ever popular, super famous from generally all of our childhoods, animation studio was folded into CBS Studios over like the last few days, over like the last week, and so it is now considered like a label under CBS Studios, but like Nickelodeon as we know it, knew it, is
kind of
essentially no more. And so it's going to be an interesting conversation for us to have as far as that's concerned. There is a new run of New Mutants that has been announced. They are all characters I don't know at all, and that probably makes me more excited about them than anything else that's going on. We will dig a little bit into, again, last week I talked a little bit about how they're saying that the new X-Men movies that are coming from Marvel, like they have officially announced 2028 for the X-Men movie coming out of the MCU. Rumor is no Wolverine. I couldn't be happier, bro. I like Wolverine. Sin couldn't stand Wolverine. I like Wolverine. But I just really, there are so many mutants. There are so many characters that have dope powers and have great stories that I feel like they could be telling on the big screen in a theater that I just feel like they're not giving any shine to, because they always default back to the same characters over and over again. And I know that those are some of the most popular and most famous runs, but we need to look at some other things. We'll talk about that a little bit too. WrestleMania.
Yes, sir.
Happening this weekend. If you all are not hip, get hip. Every Monday and every Friday, we have a new live show that happens on our Instagram, on our Loading Sites Instagram account, as well as the Finisher Podcast, our wrestling podcast Instagram account, where our guy Kay is going in for 10 minutes. It's called the 10-minute teardown, and just talking about what just happened on Raw on Monday nights and what happened on SmackDown on Friday nights. So by all means, jump in, have the conversation with them. Drop your comments and talk about what's going on. I don't know that there'll be anything for WrestleMania this week. I know you guys were kind of still trying to figure that out, right, Jokes?
So right now, the biggest thing, there will be an episode of the Finisher Podcast that will be dropping 10 a.m. on Wednesday morning. So that will drop as usual. So expect that. Go ahead and check that out. There may be a little extra that you may be seeing on Friday. We're waiting to see if a couple of things going to align, but if not, you may just be seeing me and Marcus's face in the video show up on Friday. But if everything goes smooth, expect to see something WrestleMania-oriented Friday from us and potentially a couple of guests.
Yeah, listen, you guys know I try to keep the wrestling stuff out of this show as much as I can. But next
Nope.
week, like we're gonna have to talk some about what happened over the weekend at WrestleMania.
listen,
Frosty,
you
I'll be
don't
one
have
of
to
the
be
most
clueless.
clueless people at WrestleMania. You know what, Frosty? You were in there for a minute. You're gonna recognize some people and,
Listen,
and have a good time.
listen, when people cheer, you cheer. If they boo, you boo. But if you want to get kind of
I
thing, do
disagree.
the opposite. Do
Yeah,
the opposite.
there you go. Do what
Do
you
the
want.
opposite. Because that's
Yeah.
where you're really going to be like,
Yeah. Just don't get caught up buying merch.
Man,
They say,
Raw
man,
messed
they
up.
say Raw messed up. What on Monday?
What you mean? I guess you're just talking about like the main event type of thing, or I don't know. You gotta let me know that one because I'm interested to actually hear that.
All I can tell you is I don't watch or pay attention to it. Oh,
There you
Frosty
go.
said I'm still gonna boo and cheer as loud as I can. Listen, make sure you get your voice back first before you go lose it again this weekend. You know what I'm saying? And
Yep, the main event.
from Loading Snacks to them, shout out to the happy couple that's getting married at WrestleMania this weekend. They're an awesome couple. Yeah, messed up the main event. Sunk down the main event. I know that I saw that there was some stuff that happened afterwards, like after the show ended. There was more.
The after the thing was like obviously that was for everyone that was there in attendance, but it literally brought like both main events from both nights, having them like all jump in and fight one. It was weird. That's why that was off camera or whatever. But Roman versus CM Punk, I'm cool with it. The story has been a little shaky, but
shaky.
I get it.
Shaky. Look, y'all, I think that about does it for us for the evening. I want to take a moment to thank all of y'all for hanging out with us tonight, right, Jokes?
Yes, sir.
Special shout out to the lurkers. You guys are just as important as everybody else. I appreciate you being there, even if you're not commenting, if it's not comfortable for you to do, if you're one of those people who's like me, who just can't quite type as fast as the other people who are typing, and I have a thought and I start typing it and then somebody else will type it and then I'll be like, nah, I don't say anything, so I don't even let me just delete that. You know what I mean? Shout out to y'all too. We greatly appreciate y'all being here. That is the absolute truth. While we could do it without you, I don't know that there'd be a point. So we probably wouldn't. So thank you again for hanging out, for tuning in. Check us out on Patreon. Make sure you're following us on all our socials. A lot of good content coming that way. Joseph dropped a new wrestling video that's about the rivalry, brotherhood, mentorship between Cody and Randy. So I highly suggest you go and you check that out. You'll see a lot more of that kind of stuff coming your way. Jokes, can we wrap it up?
I think we can wrap it up.
Tell the folks what I need them to know.
Remember, y'all, just because of a well thought out plan doesn't make it a good idea.
With that, we're out. Watch them all. Toodles and lose.
Loading snacks.